over straight away. So there we are. Thank you.
Lovely. Good afternoon. I'll move around a bit. I'll create a bit of emotion, as I've been told. So I was in this event last year. So we held this in our London office. And I think we took away a number of things from last year. So I'm trying to think of the two key things that or a number of things, but two key things that we did last year. So one of the things that we did as an organisation is we introduced magic moments. So there's a lady from the client side who was talking about magic moments. We brought those into our business so that all of our people would identify with creating these magic moments for our customers. That seemed to work pretty well. We also introduced something which we termed as good, better, and different. So not like the good, bad, and ugly, good, better, and different. So what are we doing that's good for our customers? What are we doing that could be better? And then what are we doing that could really mix things up and be different? So I'd say when we're coming to these kind of things, we're all here to learn. We're all here to learn. We're all here to listen. Certainly from our perspective, we're not here to preach. We're just here to get some thoughts, get some leadership, and hopefully get some knowledge that we can take back into our business. So those were two things that we did. One thing you're probably saying is, well, who is Natilik and who is Cisco? So hopefully most of you have heard of Cisco. That probably doesn't need a lot of introductions. What might need a bit of an introduction is Natilik. So we predominantly work with Cisco as a partner. As an organisation, we've got over 20 years experience in this space. So 20 years, which has come from more of a call contact centre background. When we talk about CXPAs in our DNA, so we're that organisation that doesn't manufacture anything. We don't have any products. We just deliver and execute the services and the projects to make sure all this comes to life. So an organisation that only exists based on delivering exceptional customer experience projects. So most of that starts in our world with a business case. So and that business case tends to cross the chasm, as we would call it, between IT and CX. So a common problem we hear is siloed investments that are continuously made by IT quite often and not necessarily taking into account the CX experience, whether that's a user's customer experience or a user experience or an actual customer experience. So as an organisation, our bit is sitting in the middle and hopefully crossing that chasm. Part of that might start with a business case, so a business case for doing X, Y, Z, then looking at ROI models, initiative sequencing, then into projects. And those projects can go from anywhere from probably 3 months up to about 2 years. So customers that we work with in this local area, one of them's Coventry Building Society, so welcome there, sat in the crowd. Capital One's another one, Camelot, London Stock Exchange, Dyson. The list of organisations go on. And that's a bit where you probably haven't heard of Natilik, but you certainly will have heard of Cisco as the undoubted market leader in the contact centre space. As an organisation, we'd say we're big enough to matter, small enough to care. So everything that runs through our veins is an obsession around delivering excellence to each and every single one of our clients. Organisations have choice of who they go to. They could go to a BT Global Services. They could go to a Dimension Data or someone like that for delivering their contact centre platform, or maybe somebody who really cares about outcomes and delivering amazing outcomes for their clients. So if you're thinking of Natilik, hopefully think of us as somebody who wants to deliver outstanding outcomes. We often work across the globe. So we have operations in North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. So in our world, it's about delivering excellence regardless of the country. So we have contact centres, we have clients in the Philippines, in South Africa, in South America. So projects in about 56 countries. So what you often find is projects are tricky to deliver in the UK. Try and then deliver those across multiple geos, and that's where you hit even bigger problems. And I think that all probably resonates. Making change happen is difficult enough just in the UK. Trying to do that across multiple geos is even more complicated. And then the organisations that we work with, we're trying to get one of our clients in today. So we tried to get Capital One in, who were going to go through their digital their digital journey and everything that's going on in terms of change there. So unfortunately, we didn't get Capital One in. They had other things to do. So what we did do is get Kath from Cisco to come along and help with bringing this almost penultimate session to life by going, what's it like as a CXPA practitioner in this marketplace? What's the real life experiences that she has? So Kath's got a good 20 years experience. You wouldn't have thought it. She started when she was 10 in this space, delivering amazing customer outcomes with this wonderful technology. Shortly after this, you'll also hear from Jeff from Upstream, who will talk you through sort of the omni-channel piece. So from Natilik's perspective, not manufacture anything, we work with Cisco. We also work with Upstream and a raft of ecosystem partners. So without further ado, I'll introduce to Kath, and then we'll take some questions at the end, if that's okay. So, Kath, over to you.
What an introduction. No pressure. And what a lovely surprise for me. I actually thought I was coming to this event as one of you guys, a delegate. I thought I was going to be sitting in the audience, not actually stood on this stage until yesterday. But it's absolutely my pleasure to come and share some experiences and talk to you about the way that we approach helping organisations on their customer experience strategy. And in particular, what I thought I'd focus on today in the shortness of time was employee engagement and how that actually had a direct correlation with customer experience and how getting both of those elements right will actually result in greater efficiency gains. So I sit within the Cisco Customer Experience Global Acceleration Team, which sounds quite grand. Who would have thought that an American had made up that title? But so what that basically means is that myself and my 40-odd peers and colleagues, we're all in the CXPA Association. A lot of us are already CCXP accredited or well underway in that journey with support and guidance from the illustrious and now multi-global book-selling Ian Golding. If you haven't got Ian's book yet, shame on you. It's available on Amazon. It's got 5 out of 5. So that's plug number 1, Ian. And we help organisations map out that strategy at whatever point they might be. So they might be at a very low end in terms of their customer experience maturity, and we're helping them to actually transform and become better at delivering customer experience. And then once they've actually achieved that, how do they actually sustain? As we all know, customer experience doesn't have a destination unless you happen to be a funeral director, and then hopefully you'll get some repeat business from the family. So about 6 years ago, I stepped aside from selling tech and I went to work for a company called Merchants, who is essentially the consulting division of Dimension Data. And on my first day, I was handed this report about this thick, about an inch thick, it was then called the Dimension Data Global Contact Center Benchmarking Report. It's now been renamed. I'm getting one nod in the crowd. It's now been renamed as the Dimension Data Global Contact, even I can't get it right, Customer Experience Report. As I say, it's quite a lengthy report, but in that, and I absolutely consumed it. I really devoured every single one of those words on that page, because until then, to be quite honest, I'd been selling tech. And I'd never really thought about the whole psychology around, why us, we consumers, actually buying it. It was something that I could certainly, that resonated with me and I could certainly relate to as a consumer of many of these products and services. But what I really enjoyed reading about and what really struck a chord was that of agent or employee experience, the direct correlation that it has with customer experience. And this is one of the slides out of about 300 that Dimension Data actually produces every year. But this is one of the slides which comes out of the operations section of the report. And of course, it talks about what are the direct outputs that we feel from customer experience. Number 2, as you can see, is employee engagement. And we've done a lot of talking today about how can we improve the customer journey, how can we improve the agent journey, but we haven't really gone into detail about, what is the benefit for the business in terms of improving those two journeys. And absolutely, it is an increase in revenue or profits, or advocacy, retention, and all of these great things. Sometimes we'll speak to an organisation and say, Cisco, you're bloody expensive. And we say, okay, well, let's do some operational reviews. Let's allow us to come into your business. And then we can actually map out what that return on investment what it might look like. You know, what are the overall efficiency gains that you might actually feel by increasing your customer experience, or indeed by increasing your employee experience. But how can we actually enrich the lives of our employees? And it's all about making that journey for the employees easy. As we talk about, you know, customer experience and customer journeys and being able to make interactions with our customers easier, we need to make sure that our employees are given the right tools in order to do their jobs and also make their working lives easier and happier. Number one, share the value proposition. So those of you in the audience, and I know there's quite a few that have been through CCXP, will know that number one, you know, the organisations need to come together and all agree that they understand what the value prop is. And so many times we work with businesses and you go into the organisation and you have a different version of the truth. So many organisations are really disparate, work is still in silos, and you'll get various business units that have a different idea of what the end mission and strategy of the organisation. I'm not going to read all of these out in the interest of time, but certainly empower is one of the key ones, to give them a degree of autonomy. So there's a well-known hotel, of course, called the Ritz-Carlton, and I think also this is mentioned in the CCXP workshop, in that each one of the workers within Ritz-Carlton is given $2,000 a day to use at his or her discretion to enrich the journey of a guest at the hotel. I think that you need to instill certain caveats around this working policy, or it could be potentially quite dangerous. But absolutely, you know, give them some credit. You know, give the agents or the workers some credit and allow them to have that bit of extra power. A couple of times today, we've also talked about contact centre metrics. And just the same as we need to continuously look at the business processes for our organisations and actually look at, do they now still make sense? You know, customer journeys change all the time, so thereby, by default, tells us that business processes should change. You know, certainly I've been in the industry a long time. Back in the day, average handling time for calls was a number one key metric. So we would tell our agents to deal with calls as quickly as you can, move on to the next. However, now we know that calls coming into the contact centre are nowadays traditionally a bit more complex. They take a longer time to actually serve that customer. So wouldn't that actually tell you that you need to spend longer with that interaction with your customer, whether it's over a web chat, whether it's on the phone, over email, whatever it might be. So, you know, keep reassessing the business processes. And finally, you know, give the right tools for the job. So the first stat on here, and I love a stat, working for merchants, is quite depressing. But I think there's a direct correlation here with the scenario, Ian, that you mentioned again in your book, plug number 2. That Gallup did a 2017 survey, and 92% of employees in the UK actually cited that they were disengaged at work. 92%. So that should tell us, and it does tell us, that there's something fundamentally broken with the tools that we actually give our workers today. Whether those workers are sitting in a traditional contact centre, whether they're sitting in a branch, or whether they're sitting out in a retail division, wherever they might work, we're not getting it right. And I think the average for the Gallup survey was in the 80s, but certainly the UK was on the lower end of the spectrum. My final slide of today, I'm keeping it short and sweet with just 4 slides, but give them the knowledge, that knowledge base, and you might have heard about knowledge base from today and indeed from other vendors, but the key thing here is to get it right across all of the channels. We did a report with BT last November, and we surveyed 5,000 consumers, and what we actually found was 82% of consumers actually said that they felt in their hearts that when they picked up the phone to make the call to call the contact centre, they felt that they were going to get a different version of facts than what they actually read online. So it's really important to make sure that it is consistent, whether it's held online, access to a mobile app, whether it's AI, or it's powering your AI, or whether it's embedded into the desktop for the agent. Also make sure that knowledge is out on the edge. So We worked with the Building Society a couple of years ago, and we actually found through some operational reviews that 30% of the calls coming into the centralised contact centre actually started out at the branch level. So they were servicing clients or their own customers that were coming in for some advice. They didn't have the answers, so they were picking up the phone, calling the centralised contact centre, tying up phone lines, and it was impacting actual customers trying to call the contact centre. So being able to enable branches or retail stores will actually have a significant impact in the productivity and the efficiency of your centralised contact centres. Give them the context, okay? So our agents and our workers, as far as I know, can't read minds, nor do they have a crystal ball on their desks. So you need to be able to empower them with the right analytics to be able to look at that customer journey, to be able to identify that you might have started on a digital channel, that you couldn't self-serve, and therefore you dropped off and you called the contact centre or you initiated a web chat, and being able to identify where that activity or where those fall-offs are actually happening will actually then be able to help you as a business better your online capabilities, keep people online in the channel that they actually started, and have more of a hit rate in terms of self-service containment, and also be able to give the agents the crystal ball. Collaboration. Okay, so I was undertaking an operational review in a bank in South Africa about a month ago. Quite alarmed when one of the team leaders told me that 80% of her time is spent reallocating tasks that come through the IBR, hit the wrong desk. That banker actually can't then help that customer. She can't transfer. She can't speak to any of her back office colleagues, so they have to politely say goodbye to the customer, so it's affecting their FCR rather drastically. And then the team leader has to actually take on board that task and farm it out to the right person. Okay, 80%. So absolutely, you know, we all understand the need for collaboration. We talk a lot about omni-channel. It's not just from a customer perspective and tying up the customer touch points, but it's also about building the bridges of the silos of the organisations that you actually work in. And certainly from a barrier to omni-channel, it's not just from a technical perspective, often it is internal, and the lack of capability to actually to work in a unified capability across the business. Agents often will work on multiple systems, so it takes a lot of time to self-serve, to serve clients when they come through on the phone or through a web chat. So reduce the systems. Make sure that you can reduce those number of clicks. Pivoting from one channel to the other. So it could be that I'm self-serving you on a web chat. For whatever reason, we need to break free and actually take a phone call. It could be that your customer needs to go and do a job, go and walk the dog. So they actually need to break from that web chat. So your agents need to be able to jump over from one channel to the next seamlessly and taking all of that context with them. Equally, it works the other way. So I was reviewing my mobile phone bill a couple of Sundays ago, and I was being lazy. My mobile phone was on charge upstairs, so I just thought, I'll just do a web chat. And it got to a certain point in the web chat where they wanted some money off me to upgrade. And I thought, oh, God, can't I just give it to you over web chat? And she said, no, Miss Simons, our systems don't allow it. And I thought, okay. So my customer experience radar was absolutely in tune. She said, you need to call 202. And I knew, my heart sunk, that I'd get stuck in the IBR. Eventually, I'd get through to an agent, or he and she would have no idea while I was calling. And of course, I'd have to repeat all of the scenario. And that actually, you know, that absolutely happened. I won't call them out because that would be unfair. But yeah, be able to actually pivot between channels as the customer dictates or as it actually makes sense. And listen and be heard. You know, you've got to involve your employees and your agents. Let them know what the strategy is of the business. Get them involved. Get them involved in any point of the transformation. So we, in hand with Natilik, do a lot of operational reviews as part of the process. So we'll go into the contact centre, we'll listen to the agent calls, we'll spend time with the business heads, and then we walk away, we map out what the current state looks like today, what the requirements or the desired state is going to be tomorrow, and actually walk away with the blueprint of order of priorities of the steps that the organisations need to move in order to be able to deliver that transformation. And I think, Matt, that's it from me.
For a AAA rate, oh, here we go. Don't need that. So something we did a couple of years ago, and I think the main theme is change is the only constant. So how do we deal with change is the big question. And I was speaking to this gentleman here from Barclays. And one of those earlier, and one of those things that came up was, how do we deal with change? And how do you approach it? And in our world, years ago, it was about getting a project, dealing with the project management, the engineering, the ongoing support, wrapping a product, hardware, software products around that. However, what's become more and more apparent is that we do all struggle with change, and getting our users to accept change, getting the business to accept change. How do you actually go about doing that? So this is the bit of, regardless of the technology, these are some of the things that we've done for other organisations. So we've combined digital with the printed side of things, so using posters across the whole of the operation, CEO sponsorship of what we call whisper campaigns. Probably some of you guys are familiar with that. So 6 weeks prior to actual go live of a particular segment, get emails out, get posters up, have that changing every week, get people from your organisation to be the faces of change. So you have certain people who will lead the charge there. There'll be super users. That works pretty well. Build in the email side of things, and make sure people are aware of this. Don't just create the project and then suddenly it's switched over the course of a week or so. You want to get people slowly warmed up for this. So all of this forms part of our sort of transformational type of approach, and every single form of media that you could use to make sure that it's done effectively and make sure that it's across the board. And nobody's saying, what is this project? What are we actually doing here? So it goes from brochures through to putting up everything under your own branding. So this is obviously sort of generic branding. Make sure it's under your own brand, your own language. So this is as much as anything. It's not a CX thing. It's not really an IT thing. It's more of a getting your marketing and communications part of the business aware of change happening. And I would say, then when things are going live, use of just flooding floors with people wearing T-shirts so that everyone does know who to go to. That worked pretty well for this bank a couple of years ago, and we've started to build that into everything that we do at the moment. I'd go, regardless of project, regardless of technology, make sure change is the key thing that you invest the time in, rather than just getting to the having it as an afterthought at the end. And on that note, as we go to sort of the final bit, is that we're proud to sponsor the CX Day. We did do last year. We have done this year. We probably will. Well, without a doubt, Ian. We will do next year. What we also do is our marketing team have these meetups. So we're running a meetup next week. If some of you are based in London, you're welcome to come along to that. That's on the 10th of October in central London, so near Liverpool Street, taking over our office. People from the CX world getting together, because you're in an amazing profession here. And the more people you can meet up, if we actually connected everyone together, and a bit like Ian was trying to do, I think did very successfully before, where you're getting people to huddle together and go, what experience do we have? If you ask each other by the side, you all face similar challenges, regardless of vertical, regardless of industry. So the more we can talk, I think the more as a collective we'll be successful. So thank you for your time. 10th of October, if you want to come along to that, it's free. We'd love to see some of you there.
In the evening, isn't it?
It's in the evening, yes. So there'll be beers, pizzas, all that kind of stuff. So any questions? We run a lot of projects, so got loads of ideas. That is just one we shared for you. So Ian?
If you don't mind, I'm going to ask a very direct question. Can I just ask, first of all, in the audience, can you raise your hand if you are, that horrible word, a vendor? Okay, so we've intentionally made sure there aren't many of them here today. My direct question is, as a vendor, which technically I am as well, you know, the perception is that you're just trying to sell us stuff. So my question is, as a vendor, what do you do? What are you doing to reinforce within your people the fact that they need to care about customer experience, not selling stuff? Is that an unfair question for me to ask?
I think it's something that needs to be ongoing. So you're talking about whether it's enablement of our Cisco teams throughout Europe, you know, in my case. So yes, a lot of hard work goes into that to make sure that if an organisation comes into contact with any of my colleagues in Cisco in France or Germany or wherever it might be, that they are ready to be able to have that conversation. I think that historically, from a Cisco perspective, you know, we were very much IT focused, selling tin, selling boxes with flashing lights on, and selling to the IT unit rather than the business and operations. And times have changed now, especially that with the adoption of cloud and IT being more and more outsourced. And so these decisions are now sitting with operations. So we need to get our sales guys, to be quite honest, confident and capable to have differentiated conversations based on business outcomes, rather than talking about IT and what something costs, a bill of materials. So it's changed those sort of conversations. So we make sure that our own Cisco guys are able to do that, equally so that our partners are also capable of doing it. And absolutely, from a UK perspective, that Natilik are up there as our #1 partner that is CX enabled and savvy and capable and confident. Yeah.
Or the discovery analysis. So again, just, you know, generic terminology, but that's getting into understanding real requirements of what you're trying to achieve. So it's always, what are you trying to achieve? Help build the business case, and we spend a lot of time within organisations to work out what that objective is before you get to the actual project thing. So you know, multiple weeks, if not months, going through that process. So it's always the actual product and the solution is it's just the first part of where you get to, and then it's continuous. It's continuous improvement from there, which again comes back to that sort of good, better, different piece. All right. Thank you.